Good morning and welcome back to the channel. I'm about to be heading out on a road trip about 460 miles from here. Google tells me that it's going to take 7 hours to get there. So we're going to see how our journey in a Tesla Model 3 compares. We're going to talk about how much longer it takes, or if it does take any longer, how much it's going to cost to drive that distance, and any other kind of quirks of driving an EV. All right, here are the stats from the first leg of the trip. So we came in, it's now 6:27, came in with 6% battery, traveled 188 miles in 2 hours and 43 minutes. As you can see, a lot of these superchargers at gas stations, you got plenty of stalls generally, and you know, it's early in the morning, so none of these are going to be taken, but generally you're able to get in and get something. So there's trash cans, you know, a Dunkin' Donuts, all the amenities that you have with a normal gas station, and generally pretty easy access to one of the chargers. All right, as we're finishing up this first supercharging round, I want to do two quick tips for you. First of all, you saw this morning when I left about 94%, so any place over 90 honestly is probably pretty good for one of the Model 3s, just because of the range you have and the amount of superchargers that are around. But precondition the battery, just make sure that it's already at operating temperature and that you've already heated up the cabin. That'll make it a lot more efficient as you get started. And then as you come in, you want to be as close to the bottom of the battery as possible. That makes it so it charges as fast as possible. That means that the time you spend at the supercharger is the most efficient that you can possibly make. So those are two quick tips for making sure your road trip is as painless as possible. All right, finishing up my charging session. Stayed here a little bit longer than I definitely needed to, just because I wanted to get food in me. So you see we're at 77%. We've added 51 kilowatt hours, and it's 6:56. So we've been here about 30 minutes, which, like I said, a little bit longer just because I went and grabbed breakfast. All right, so as I'm driving in between on this leg, I really want to call attention to the biggest Tesla hack here. So this is Autopilot. As you can see, I can take my hands off the wheel, although you want to keep them on the wheel for the most part. And it just basically makes the fatigue of driving, like these little corrections and maintaining your speed and just keeping you on the highway, really reduces that and makes these trips a whole lot easier to do. So I can hop in a car at 3 in the morning and you know, drive 7 hours and still have enough energy to be able to do all the stuff that I'm going to need to do during the day. So really huge part of being able to drive these things long distances, and it really makes the road trips a whole lot more pleasant. I just finished the second leg, made it, we're down to 12%, it's 8:52. Last leg was 148 miles, 1 hour and 55 minutes, and averaged a little bit better, 311 watt hours per mile. So I was talking about how there's always amenities nearby, but unfortunately, sometimes you come to the chargers, they're all easy, but everything is closed around you or under construction. So in those situations, this does become a little less ideal. All right, heading out on the next leg, you got 64% and it's 9:17. All right, so I'm on the home stretch right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to actually drive an EV for, you know, extended road trip. So I'm going to roll up all the facts at the end. It's going to be how much it costs, how long the trip actually took from when I left this morning. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, kind of how easy is it? Because really that's a major question, is if it's super intimidating, you never know where you're going to charge, you're always feeling this kind of sense of anxiety that you're going to run out of juice, then it doesn't really matter what the facts are. It's not a pleasant trip, and it makes it be something that you don't want it to do. And really, the point of having a car and the point of being able to travel is that it should be freeing. It shouldn't feel like you're shackled down to something, and it shouldn't feel painful. So let's start off with as we woke up. So the night before the trip, I didn't have to go to a gas station and make sure that I was all topped up. I just plugged in my car just like I do every single day. I used my finger to move a scroll wheel over another like half an inch or so in order to make sure it charged to 95%. And I told it to get ready in the morning so that at 3:45 when I was planning on leaving, the cabin would be heated up, the battery would be preconditioned, and everything would be fully charged. So when we're talking about the prep portion, I would say it's definitely less painful than what I was going through before I switched over to the electric vehicle. So during the trip itself, so as the tempo, you'll see between 2 and 3 hours between each stop. And then I'll stop there for 15-20 minutes. If I'm at a slower charger, sometimes it'll be up to 30 minutes. So in terms of the tempo of the trip, definitely that can end up being a little bit slower. So it depends, I guess, on how you travel. If you have an iron bladder and you get in the car and you drive for 6 hours straight, then you get to your destination, maybe that works out for you. What I find is it's actually fairly pleasant to stop every 2.5-3 hours in order to kind of stretch the legs, use the bathroom, get a drink or whatever. And I don't find that waiting, because I plug in and then I go and do all the things, and by the time I'm done, generally the car's at the point where it's already been charged. When you're going on super long trips, or if you have a little bit less range than this is rated around 300 miles, sometimes that becomes a little tedious. So I would say that can be a little bit more painful. Or if you're not using the Tesla network and you're traveling to Walmarts and stuff like that, where to find Electrify America or whatever other fast charging solutions, sometimes that becomes a little bit more painful just because you don't have those amenities available, and that definitely disrupts the trip, and that makes it a little bit more painful. And then finally, we're talking about the destination. So we talked about the beginning, we talked about the trip itself, and then when you get to the destination. So whenever you're away from your house and you're not able to charge where you sleep or where you're working, the car does become a little bit less convenient. So that is the last bit that I wanted to kind of leave you with this. When you're taking it on a trip, oftentimes there's a lot of hotels that have chargers there, or places of business or malls or stuff like that. So if you're on a trip and you're able to stop at one of those places, it becomes a lot more seamless. You stop, you plug in, you charge. It's easy while you're going and doing the things that you need to do. But if that's not available, especially just certain parts of the country don't have the same amount of infrastructure, if that's not available, then yeah, it does become something you have to think about. So that's a little bit less convenient than driving around in an ICE car. I'm still not searching for a gas station. It's still going to be it's still going to end up costing less. But you're right, that little bit of inconvenience definitely does matter. So I just wanted to cover those quick items while I was on this last leg, just those impressions, because that's some stuff that you either hear kind of glowing reviews of what it's like to be in an EV, or you hear like people say that they're awful and everything about them is terrible. So I just want to make sure that it's a little bit of a balanced view, and you can see that there are upsides and downsides. I wouldn't want anybody to get into something that's and then disguise any of the downsides that you're going to actually go through. For me, I feel it's worth it. For a lot of people, they feel it's worth it. But it's better to go into something if you already know kind of what to expect. All right, so as you can see, last little leg, 125 miles, about an hour and 40 minutes. And then again, 311. And then you can see charging, immediately plugged in. And the lower you get, really, the more you get. So already charging it almost 1,000 miles per hour. So it's going to get up to 250 kilowatts, which honestly, without the Tesla network, you really don't get to that. All right, stats for nerds time. Did I beat Google? No. Basically, I tied it 8 minutes over during a 7-hour trip. I'd say it's pretty damn close. So you see on there the Model 3 performance against some common comparison vehicles. The M3, which is what it was benchmarked against. The Dodge Charger's another high horsepower American car. And then Toyota Camry, which for some reason people like to compare it to, although I don't really think it's a fair comparison. If you look at the bottom, you see the total cost. That's the actual cost that it took for me to drive down there. And then you see the calculated costs for other types of vehicles based off of their rated efficiency, and then the gas prices right now. With that, hope that you enjoyed it. Hope you find this helpful. If it is helpful, like, subscribe, and then if you got any questions, obviously leave them in the comments. Hopefully, I'll see you guys again soon.